This is your brain. This is drugs. This is your brain on drugs. Any questions?
There's been a recent movement in the online gaming commentary community on quitting weed, and I shit you not, we're literally out here like those dare ads in the 80s. It's crazy because history is literally repeating itself because the same way we normalized cigarettes and other drugs back then, we're literally trying to normalize it in today's society. So this is my contribution to the movement, and let me just be blunt with you all. Get it? Weed is not good for you, and if you don't really care, I guess you could click off the video. Actually, don't click off the video. Please watch, or at least skip to the end. I don't know. I need my watch time. Anyways, yeah, it's not good for you, and if you care about your health and your well being and your long term potential to live, I hope you consider what I'm about to say in the next 10 minutes. But let me just get the worst case scenario out the way. Weed can literally cause psychosis. And I could tell you that personally, because that literally happened to me once, and I was hospitalized for it. So yeah, sit on down and let me tell you a little campfire story. Back in the day when I used to smoke these pens, which I'll show you on the screen. Yeah, those things are very dangerous and could be laced with literally anything. Most of us back in the day, we used to smoke these because it was literally smoking in incognito mode. And for all my people that got strict parents out there, y'all already knew this came in. So anyways, I was at my cousin's house for one night, and we wanted to watch the Broly movie, all geeked up. And during the time I was going through a stressful period in my life. So I was already on edge, and the episode just made it worse. After we took a bunch of hits and the drugs started to settle in, I started to like profusely sweat, and I eventually lost full control of my body. Unironically, probably went Super Saiyan. I ended up contorting under the bed. I sprung back up and I started running around and yelling. And I ended up breaking a window, and it literally took 3 of my cousins, my dad, my uncle, all these people to pin me down. The closest thing I could describe to this was literally, excuse me, I felt like I was burning from the inside out, and I passed out from exhaustion, and I woke up in the hospital, and I had no idea what they did to me, and they just said I was good, and then I was driven home. I think I was probably put on like Narcan or something. But what was the scariest part about it was most of the information I'm telling you wasn't even from recollection, is what they told me, and I didn't quit after that, which is sounds a little crazy. I ended up quitting a couple months down the line, but it really put things into perspective for me how much drugs can really overtake your body, and it's scary because there's more harder drugs out there like psychedelics, and there's been more recent discoveries that addiction to weed can cause psychosis, and it's scary stuff that people consider because for much of weed has been around, it's been considered something as like a gateway drug, which implies that it's not as something as serious as a more potent drug, or if you're gonna get into more potent drugs, this would be like the stepping stone drug per se. um Essentially the starter Pokemon of drugs, if you want to call it that. But I to some extent that rhetoric is true, but I don't like that rhetoric because it undermines the idea and the impact that weed alone can have in your life, especially if you're a younger person and your prefrontal cortex is not fully developed. um it can have long term. When I was growing up, before I was a teen, most people I knew who were smoking weed were people who were actually going through some serious stuff. So like grief, trauma, addiction. And when I became a teenager and the pendulum dropped and weed was legalized, it became the new meta. And it was a cool thing to do if you were a teen. And around my circles, I was actually one of the first people to smoke. And ironically, once I finally quit in my late teens, the people around me finally caught up. If you're a teen and you're gonna succumb to peer pressure easily. Your prefrontal cortex is not fully developed, and you're gonna succumb to peer pressure. especially when it comes to your decision making. And you know, most kids, including myself, you know, we became peer pressure. We wanted to look cool. And let me say this, right? Because I know when I was a teenager, I always wanted to impress like my older folks, and you know, we all used to always look up to people when we were teens. Um, if you want to impress those folks and impress the folks that set the foundation for you, and you want to make them proud, you know what actually makes them make you look cool? Doing shit that's actually cool. So like if you're have any talent, if you're an artist, you're an athlete, you're a musician, you do sports, you're a writer, you know, like all the kids that I work with that in my high school program, like these kids are freaking awesome. I love the all the creative stuff that they're showing me. And you know, that as an adult, you know, as an adult in my mid to late 20s, I find that shit way cooler because that's the next generation, man. That was once me. You know, your style, your personality, your ability to connect with people, that's what truly makes you unique, and it makes you stand out, makes you way cooler and memorable to people, all people around you, instead of being the group of kids that pick up that blunt and sit in the back of the bus, you know. But that's just me, I guess, you know. I know this is mostly variable. If you're someone who's an overthinker like me, more often than not, this drug is actually going to cause a lot of paranoia for you. And I was someone that I always think about the worst possible thoughts and scenarios, and it literally got amplified 5 times more when I was on this drug. And it was so ironic because every single time I wanted to take this drug, my goal was to be chill and not think about things. And more often than not, it was quite the contrary. It was so bad. I'll never forget how fast my heart used to beat when I used to smoke, and it's one of those things where I was just like, man, there's I think back and like there's no way this is a chill experience, and I've only had a very few chill weed experiences, and because I was constantly paranoid, and it's just one of those things where I now realize that if I was already paranoid off the drug, what makes me think I'm going to feel any better on it? And the world is already crazy enough, so much stuff going on a day-to-day basis, and I'm getting older. I'm having a lot more responsibility, and it's just one of those things where the things I crave the most in this world is peace and stability, and a drug that constantly has me worrying about stuff that I don't really need to necessarily worry about in the immediate moment is not ultimately good for me. um and for people that are actually going through stuff, it sucks because drugs and weed is sort of an escape, because what really is most difficult when you're going through stuff is being able to process that when you're sober. It's difficult. I've been there. We've all been there, and it's very very hard and a humbling experience. And what I can say, if you're someone on that substance and you're someone that's dealing stuff, it's only going to get more difficult the longer you wait to put it down. On top of that, these substances are made to numb your emotions. So it's literally the equivalent of, if you need to process an emotion and learn from and grow from it, it's the equivalent of unplugging your phone when it needs to charge when you're on these substances. But lastly, weed undeniably creates lung problems, and it specifically damages your lung tissue. And this causes a lot of inflammation and mucus buildup. So if you're someone that has terrible allergies or you get sick pretty often, chances are that it's going to affect your ability to breathe. And as someone who used to be asthmatic, it's not a good feeling not to breathe. It's a very very scary feeling. And I knew a guy that used to work at my job. He had terrible asthma and he had to constantly use his pump, and I felt so bad for him because that brother told me that he smoked on a daily basis, and because he was dealing with stuff, and it only made his condition worse. And brother could not put it down because he was just so numb to the feeling. But you know, I don't want to get too sad or mopey, but you know, considering things like, if you're a younger person and you know you're alive and well, be thankful, be grateful, you know, and don't try to put yourself in a position where you're gonna jeopardize that and jeopardize your long term health, because you know it could lead to more serious things like bronchitis or things that haven't even been proven yet with weed. If I was a betting man, I would place odds that, you know, all things considered, I think probably within the same way how studies came out with smoking cigarettes, wasn't healthy, and how it was normalized like in the 20th century. I think it's going to eventually result with weed too, and only time will tell. Um, so hopefully, if you're someone that's on this substance, I hope you reconsider, because if you're still lucky enough to be a capable human being and you're fortunate, that's a blessing. And, you can only ever jeopardize that yourself. So I hope you consider that. Thank you for watching. Like and subscribe. Uh, Peace be with you all. Take care.